Welcome to the Behind Closed Doors channel. Wishing you a peaceful day. Today, I'd like to share the following story with you. I hope you enjoy listening to my story. Now, please. She pulled the shorts up, smoothed them down, and without further discussion, rolled onto her side, tucking her knees up toward her chest, and went back to sleep. Within 30 seconds, the snoring resumed. The lamp flickered once and steadied. He sat at the edge of the bed and looked at her. His name was Nguyen Van Tak. He was the third son of a rice merchant from a Delta province whose name meant something with water in it. Most names in the Delta meant something with water. He had been born in 1940, in a year of bad floods and political turmoil, which meant he had arrived into the world already acquainted with crisis. He had been educated at a provincial school, recruited into government service at 22, and assigned to a post in the mountains. This mountain, this village, this impossible height above the world he had always known. In 1964. He had intended to stay 2 years. He had stayed 63. Because of her. Because of the girl who would become the woman now sleeping in his shorts. He looked at her and felt something he had no adequate word for. Pity was part of it, a sorrow so deep and so suffused with tenderness that it had become its own form of love. But it was not only pity. There was something else, a gratitude so large it sometimes frightened him, like looking directly at the sun. She was here. She was still here. Her breathing moved the air of this room, and her hand had just opened his wardrobe with the ease of 63 years of marriage. She was here. He got up slowly, found the clean sheets in the wardrobe, and began to change the bed around her without waking her. This took some skill. He had learned it in the early months after her illness, after the brain hemorrhage that had rearranged her mind the way a storm rearranges a house, leaving the structure standing, but everything inside displaced, nothing where it was supposed to be. He had learned many things in those months that he had never thought to learn. He was still learning. When the bed was fresh and cool again, he sat back down. Outside, the rain had grown serious, drumming a complex rhythm on the roof. The mountain dark pressed against the window. He thought, as he often thought at this hour, of the particular shape his life had taken, its unexpected turns, its catastrophes, its extraordinary compensations, and he found himself thinking it had been, on balance, a good life, a very good life. One he had not, at 22, had the imagination to foresee. He thought, I would choose it again, every part of it, even this part. Especially this part. He reached over and pulled the blanket more snugly around her shoulders, and she stirred. A small sound, a small settling, and did not wake. He watched her breathe. Above them, the rain fell on the tin roof with a sound like applause.
The Trellis of Purple Flowers, a novel of memory, love, and the quiet courage of growing old. He did not know at first what woke him. There was no sound beyond the ordinary catalog of a mountain night, the far cry of a nightjar, the creak of old timber, the low percussion of rain beginning on the tin roof. He had slept in this house for 63 years, and he knew every sound it made, the way a musician knows a beloved instrument, each groan and whisper as familiar as his own breathing. But then he felt it, something warm, spreading slowly across the small of his back, seeping through his thin cotton sleeping shirt with the unhurried certainty of water finding its level. He lay still for a moment, confused in the way of the very old, that brief fog between sleep and waking, where nothing quite makes sense and everything feels possible. He thought, absurdly, of the monsoon rains of 1962, the floods that had swallowed the lower fields and sent the village chickens perching in the banyan trees. He turned. His wife lay beside him, small and still, sunk into sleep with the absolute unconsciousness of a child. Her chest rose and fell. Her mouth, which had no teeth in it anymore at night, she kept them in a glass of water on the bedside table, a habit that had amused him for the first decade, and now he no longer noticed, was slightly open. A thin, reedy snoring moved between her lips, a sound he had once compared, in a private journal entry he would never show anyone, to the particular note produced by blowing across the neck of an empty bottle. He understood then. He pressed his palm flat against the sheet. Yes, damp, warm and cooling fast. For a long moment he simply looked at her. The lamp on the bedside table was still burning. He kept it burning all night now, so she would not be frightened if she woke and could not remember where she was. In its amber light, her face was a landscape of extraordinary complexity. The deep gullies of her wrinkles, the dark geography of her age spots, the fine white hair that lay across the pillow like scattered feathers. Her eyelids, thin as paper, were pressed tight shut, and beneath them her eyes moved with the faint trembling of a dream. He sat up carefully, taking his weight on his arm so as not to disturb her. His joints ached. They always ached now, a low, stubborn complaint from his hips and knees and the 3 fingers on his left hand that had been broken in a farming accident in 1979 and never healed quite right. He was 84 years old. He did not think of himself as old, particularly. He thought of himself as someone who had been doing this, being alive, for a very long time, and who had consequently accumulated a great deal of knowledge about how to do it. "Wake up," he said, his voice gentle, as one speaks to someone in the middle of a dream one does not wish to shatter entirely. "Wake up and change your pants. They're all wet." She did not wake. He said it again, louder, and put a hand on her thin shoulder and shook it with measured care. A sound emerged from her, not quite a groan, not quite a word, somewhere between the two. Her eyes did not open. Her hand, moving with the blind confidence of someone who has no idea they are moving, reached down, groped at the waistband of her sleeping pants, and began to push them down her legs. The same hand then reached out sideways in the dark, palm searching, and found the handle of the wardrobe door. He watched her open the wardrobe. He watched her hand, that thin hand with its knotted knuckles and its blue-mapped veins, its skin so loose now it moved separately from what lay beneath, rummage in the darkness of the lower shelf with absolute certainty. It knew what it was looking for. The hand, at least, remembered. It emerged with a pair of his shorts, dark blue, elastic-waisted. She began to put them on. "Hey," he said, and he could hear the beginning of a laugh somewhere in his chest. "Hey, those are my shorts." She still did not open her eyes, but her mouth moved. The words came out with the serene confidence of someone who has just won an argument. "Shorts are shorts. You have dozens. I only wear one. And you're complaining?"
Chapter 2. The Mountain and the Lowlander. To understand how Nguyen Van Tak came to spend 63 years on a mountain he had not been born to, you must understand what the mountain looked like to a young man from the Delta in the summer of 1964. He arrived by truck, the last leg of the journey on a road that was more suggestion than reality. 2 ruts in red clay that wound upward through bamboo stands and secondary jungle, crossing streams on wooden bridges that shivered under the vehicle's weight. The truck delivered him, along with a crate of government documents, 3 boxes of medicine for the district clinic, and a sack of rice, to a village of perhaps 300 souls perched on a shelf of mountain at an altitude that made the air feel thinner, cleaner, almost insolent in its clarity. He was 24 years old. he had never been above the cloud line before. The village was called Banhua Tim, the village of purple flowers. It had earned the name from the wisteria-like vines that grew with extraordinary vigor on every trellis, every fence post, every doorway in the settlement, producing each spring a riot of purple bloom that reportedly could be seen, on clear days, from the valley below as a purple bruise on the green flank of the mountain. He arrived in summer, when the flowers had finished, but their remnants hung in dried clusters from the trellises, and the scent, sweet, slightly musty, complex in the way of things that have been beautiful, was still present in the air. His official duties were vague in the way that government duties in remote postings often are. He was to assist with land registration, to facilitate communication between the village headman and the district authorities, to encourage participation in certain agricultural programs the government had designed in offices far away by people who had likely never seen a terrace field. He was, in other words, a young man with a briefcase and a mandate, and no clear idea of what either one was for. What he was not prepared for was the village itself, or the people in it, or, in particular, the headman's youngest daughter. Her name was Hua, the character for flower, for blossom, for something that blooms and is beautiful. It was a common enough name in the mountains, but she was not a common enough girl, and he knew it from the first afternoon when he was sitting in the headman's house being served green tea and trying to understand the dialect, which differed from the lowland Vietnamese he spoke in ways that were not quite a different language, but were something much more difficult. The same words shifted slightly in meaning, the same grammar, weighted differently, so that he understood perhaps 70% of what was said, and spent the remaining 30% nodding with what he hoped looked like comprehension. Hua brought the tea. That was all. She carried the tray in both hands, set it down without looking at him, poured with practiced economy, and began to withdraw. But before she left the room, she glanced at him once, just once, a quick, sideways assessment, the kind a person makes when they want to know something without being caught wanting to know it. And in that glance, he saw something that arrested him completely. Intelligence. Not the performed intelligence of someone who has learned to appear clever, but the real kind. The kind that looks at the world and asks questions about it, that finds familiar things genuinely interesting rather than merely enduring them. Her eyes were dark and very clear, and they held in them a quality of alert attention. She was looking at him, this lowlander with his government briefcase and his inadequate dialect, and she was thinking something specific about what she saw. He wanted to know what it was. It took him 3 months to find out. 3 months of tea drinking and document stamping and agricultural meeting facilitating, all of which he performed with dutiful competence while pursuing a secondary agenda that consumed considerably more of his energy. Learning enough of the local dialect to hold a conversation, learning the customs of address and greeting and appropriate behavior, and finding legitimate reasons to be in the headman's household often enough to encounter the headman's youngest daughter more than coincidentally. He learned she was 20. She had attended the district school through the primary grades and had taught herself to read beyond what the school offered by borrowing books, first from the teacher, then from a cousin who had gone to the city for university and sent books back, then from the small district library 40 kilometers away, to which she made monthly trips on foot or by whatever conveyance presented itself. She could read Vietnamese, some French, and a little of the Romanized script her people used for the minority language that was their mother tongue. She had opinions about the books she read. She had, it emerged, opinions about most things. She also had the most extraordinary face he had ever seen, but he had already known that. Her beauty was not of the kind that announces itself loudly. It was quieter than that, more durable. She had the high, strong cheekbones of the Highland peoples, a wide mouth that curved easily into an expression somewhere between amusement and skepticism, and those clear, dark eyes that seemed always to be looking at something slightly further away than whatever was in front of her. She moved with the unhurried efficiency of someone who has work to do and intends to do it well, without fuss. She laughed rarely, and when she laughed, it was a real laugh, unperformed, catching her sometimes by surprise, as though the amusement had arrived before she was quite ready for it. He fell in love with her by degrees, each degree accompanied by a small internal argument that went roughly, "This is temporary. You will be reassigned. You know nothing about this place. Her father will never agree. You are making a serious mistake." He agreed with all of these arguments and fell in love with her anyway, as people do. The obstacle of the father was formidable. Headman Ah Fong was a man of late middle age with the physical authority of someone who has spent a lifetime doing hard work at altitude. Compact, broad-shouldered, with hands like tools and a regard for lowland government officials somewhere between tolerant contempt and active suspicion. He was not a cruel man. He was a careful one. He had seen enough of what came down from the lowlands: war, disease, taxation, regulations that made no sense in the context of mountain life, to view the arrival of a young kin official with something less than enthusiasm. And the idea that this young kin official wished to marry his daughter was, to put it mildly, not met with immediate enthusiasm. "You don't know this place," the headman said, when Tak finally made his intention clear. Not a question, a statement. They were sitting in the headman's house in the early evening, the mountains going purple in the last of the light. "You don't know the cold. You don't know the season of no rain when the fields go hard. You don't know what it is to plant in the mist at 5 in the morning when your hands are so cold you can't feel the seedlings." "I would learn," Tak said. "Lowland men always say that. Then they take their wives to the delta, and the women lose themselves. They lose their language. They forget the songs. They become strangers to their own children." "I am not proposing to take her to the delta," Tak said. "I am proposing to stay here." A silence. The headman looked at him with an expression he could not read. "For how long?" "For as long as she will have me." Another silence, longer. Outside, one of the dogs barked once and was quiet. The mountains held their enormous, indifferent peace. Then the headman reached for his pipe and said nothing more on the subject, which was not agreement but was, Tak came to understand, not quite refusal either. The campaign that followed lasted the better part of a year. During this period, Tak planted banyan saplings, the traditional suitor's gesture in the mountain culture, a sign of patient, rooted intention, in the ground before the headman's house. He did this in the early mornings, before the household woke, working by the light of a lamp. He was discovered regularly by the headman's dogs, large, territorial animals who regarded him as an ongoing offense and chased away with a noise that woke the neighborhood. He returned the next morning. He was chased away again. He returned the morning after that. The village found this either deeply romantic or deeply ridiculous, depending on whom you asked. The children found it hilarious and would gather at a safe distance to watch the official being harassed by the dogs. Hoa herself, when he finally maneuvered a private conversation, told him with entire seriousness that he was going to get bitten. "I've almost been bitten many times," he said. "Almost is not the same as bitten. You should stop before you actually are." "Should I stop?" He looked at her with complete directness. "Or should I keep planting the trees?" She met his look with equal directness and did not answer immediately. Then, "The trees are doing well," she said. "The soil is good there." And she went back inside. He planted more trees. What finally turned the father was not persistence exactly, or not only persistence. What turned him was a winter epidemic. In the cold months of that year, a respiratory illness moved through the village with the thoroughness of something that has been waiting for an opportunity. The district clinic was 40 kilometers away on a bad road. Tuck drove back and forth in the government truck for 7 days, ferrying medicine, assisting the village's traditional healer, sitting up through nights with the elderly and the very young who were worst affected. He did not do this strategically. He was not capable of that kind of calculation. He did it because people were sick, and it did not occur to him to do otherwise. When the epidemic had passed and the village counted its survivors and its losses, the headman came to find him. He sat with Tuck in the government office for a long time, saying nothing, and then he said, "If my daughter is willing." She was willing. Their wedding was held in the spring, when the purple flowers were at their most extravagant. He remembered standing before the village elder in his best suit, which was very out of place here, and which he had ironed 3 times in an attempt to look sufficiently serious, and watching her walk toward him in the traditional clothes of her people, embroidered in red and black with silver at her throat, and thinking, "I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve this. Not, I am the luckiest man alive, though that too, but more specifically, this is a responsibility. This is something I will have to work to earn daily for as long as I live." He did not know, standing there in the spring light with the purple flowers behind her, that the working would be longer and stranger and more demanding than anything he had imagined. That the earning would eventually take a form he could not then have conceived. That 60 years later, he would be sitting on the edge of a wet bed at 2 in the morning, changing sheets with practiced silence around a sleeping woman who had just stolen his shorts, and that this, of all the moments of his life, would feel like precisely what he had promised.
Chapter 3. What she built.
What she built over the 63 years of their marriage was a life. This is not a small thing. It is, in fact, an enormous thing. And it is the kind of thing that tends to be invisible precisely because it is so large, like a mountain, which you do not notice as a structure because it is the landscape itself, because everything else is arranged in relation to it. She built 4 children. This is the verb she herself used, build. She spoke of her children the way an architect speaks of a building, as something you design and construct and then must periodically maintain and repair. She did not romanticize motherhood. She found it frequently exhausting, sometimes maddening. Occasionally, she confided this to Tetch in rare, unguarded moments, almost desperately lonely. Because the particular loneliness of a woman whose entire life is organized around the needs of other people is very specific and very hard to describe. But she built them anyway, 4 of them, 2 sons and 2 daughters. She built their bodies with her milk and her food and her constant physical labor. And she built their characters with the same methodical, patient attention she gave to everything. The eldest son, Min, was born in 1966, 1 year after the wedding, in what turned out to be a year of unusual political difficulty. Regulations changing, the village required to conform to new administrative patterns that sat uneasily on its centuries-old practices. Tetch working 18-hour days trying to mediate between the mountain people's customs and the lowland government's requirements. During this year, Hua managed the household, managed the child, managed the kitchen garden, managed the livestock, managed the relationships with neighbors and in-laws, and somehow also managed to be the person Tetch came home to. The person who had saved him a bowl of something hot, who had an observation about what he had told her of the day's difficulties, who looked at him with those clear eyes and said simply, "You did the right thing," or, occasionally and more valuably, "You should not have done that." She was right more often than not. He had learned to consult her on matters that were officially entirely within his professional domain, and she had given him counsel with the directness of someone who has no investment in appearing polite at the expense of being accurate. She built the house, too, not with her hands, though her hands were on everything in it, but in the sense that she organized it, maintained it, made the 10,000 small decisions that cause a structure to remain a home rather than deteriorating into mere shelter. She knew where everything was, She knew when the roof needed patching before the rains came. She knew which neighbor to call when the water pump failed, which herbs from the garden would treat which illness, when the second son was lying and when the youngest daughter was hiding something, and exactly what temperature the room should be for the body of an elderly person in the cold season. She also built, over decades, the social fabric of the household's existence. The relationships with neighbors, with her own family, with Tech's family in the Delta, who visited occasionally and who she received with impeccable hospitality while, privately, Tech knew, finding them exhaustingly foreign. She arranged marriages for both sons and the eldest daughter, conducting the necessary negotiations with the composed authority of someone who knows what she wants and has a clear sense of what constitutes a fair exchange. She was not sentimental about this. She was practical. She wanted for her children partners who would be kind and competent and faithful, in approximately that order.
What about love? Tick asked her once, when they were discussing the suitability of a candidate for their eldest son. She gave him a look of mild exasperation.
Love comes, she said. If both people are kind and they work at it, love comes. It is not the starting point. It is what you make. He thought about this. He thought about the purple flowers and the dogs and the year of planting trees at 5 in the morning. Is that how it happened for us? He asked. She considered this for a long moment with genuine seriousness, as she considered everything. No, she said finally. Ours was different. You were ridiculous, and I felt sorry for you. And then I didn't feel sorry for you anymore. And then I realized I was counting the hours between when I saw you. That's love, he said. That's the beginning of love, she corrected. What we have now is what you make after 60 years. It's different. It's bigger. Bigger? It has more rooms. She returned to whatever she had been doing, which did not require further discussion. He thought about that for days afterward. It has more rooms. It was, he decided, the most accurate description of long love he had ever heard. Through all the years of building, she had also, and this was the thing he came to understand only late, only when it was too late to say thank you adequately, taken care of him. Not in ways he had noticed, because the most expert caregiving is invisible. He had not cooked a meal in 60 years. He had not done his own laundry. He had not, in any practical sense, managed the logistics of his own life. These things had simply happened, had been arranged around him with such seamless efficiency that he'd experienced them as natural, as the simple conditions of existence, like air and daylight. He understood now that they were not natural. They were the product of enormous, continuous labor by a specific person who had chosen to do this labor not because she had no alternative, but because she had decided early on that this was how she would love him. Not with words. She was not a person who used words for love, particularly. With presence, with competence, with the 1,000 daily acts of provision that together constitute a life. He had taken it for granted. He was not proud of this, but he believed it was true of most men of his generation, possibly of most people, possibly of everyone who receives love in its daily, undramatic form. We take for granted what does not announce itself. We notice absence far more readily than presence. He had begun to notice now. He was noticing with an urgency that felt sometimes like grief, the grief of discovering the value of something at the moment when you can no longer be sure of keeping it. She was still here, but she was not always exactly here. The brain hemorrhage had done something to the boundary between her and the world, had made it permeable in ways it had not been before, so that she moved in and out of the present like a person crossing between rooms, and you could not always tell which room she was in, or whether she could hear you calling from the other side of the wall. Sometimes she was entirely here. She would look at him with the full force of 63 years of knowing him, and say something that was startlingly exact.
A memory from 1972. The precise name of a plant he could not identify. The punchline of a joke they had not told in 30 years. In those moments, his relief was so large, it was almost physical. And sometimes she was elsewhere. And on those occasions, he learned to wait, without panic, until she came back. Chapter 4. The day everything changed. The day everything changed was not a dramatic day. That was the first thing he could not reconcile for months afterward. That a day on which something irreversible happened had looked, until the moment it happened, entirely ordinary. The morning had been clear, a good, clear mountain morning of the kind that arrives in the cool season, when the sky is a specific shade of blue that you do not see at lower altitudes, a blue of excessive purity that makes everything beneath it look slightly theatrical, too vivid, as though the world is trying harder than usual. He had worked in the garden for 2 hours, turning compost. She had been in the kitchen, where the sounds of her activity, the knock of the cleaver on the cutting board, the particular hiss of something hitting a hot pan, reached him as a comfortable background, an ongoing proof that all was well. Around 9:30, she had come to the kitchen door and called to him, "I'm so tired, honey. I'm so tired." He had looked up and seen her standing there with one hand on the doorframe, and he had registered the words, "She said she was tired," and he had said, "Go and rest then. I'll manage lunch." And she had gone inside. He finished in the garden. He came in and washed his hands. He made tea and drank it, looking out the window at the mountains. He assumed she was sleeping. She often slept in the mornings now. Age had rearranged her sleep patterns, and she sometimes dozed through the morning and was most alert in the evenings. He thought nothing of it. At noon, he went to wake her. She was lying on her side in the position she usually slept in, one hand tucked under her cheek, the blanket pulled to her shoulder. She looked, at a glance, asleep. But the quality of her stillness was wrong. There is a difference between a sleeping person and an unconscious one that you cannot always articulate, but that the body recognizes before the mind does. Something about the depth of the stillness, the absence of the small adjustments that a sleeping person makes even in sleep. He was across the room in 3 steps and had his hand on her shoulder and was saying her name before he had consciously understood what he was seeing. "Hoa. Hoa." She did not respond. He turned her. Her face was slack, her breathing audible, rough, slow, with a laboring quality that told him this was not sleep. Her lips were slightly blue. He had not spent 60 years on a mountain without learning to recognize the body in crisis. His hands were already moving, phone, call, district hospital, and simultaneously he was on his knees beside her, with his hand checking her pulse, speaking to her in both languages, in Vietnamese and in the Highland tongue she had taught him over decades, calling her back. The ambulance took 40 minutes. He had heard those 40 minutes described afterward in clinical terms. Rapid response considering the distance, the roads, the altitude. He experienced those 40 minutes as something outside of time entirely, a suspended state in which he was simultaneously entirely calm, because calm was necessary, and he was a man who could produce calm when calm was required, and completely terrified, in a deep internal space that had nothing to do with calm, where the terror moved like a large animal in a small room. He held her hand. He talked to her. He told her about the garden, the compost he had turned, the new growth on the beans, the pair of birds who had been building a nest in the purple flower trellis for 3 days. He told her he had started a new pot of rice, and she would need to tell him when to add the vegetables because he could never remember the timing. He told her, at some point, that she was not allowed to leave, that he had not given permission, that this was not acceptable. She did not respond.
In the hospital, she was in surgery for 6 hours. The brain hemorrhage, they told him, had been severe, but had been caught early enough being a relative term that the doctor used with careful qualification. The damage was significant. They would need to wait to assess. The doctor was a young woman, no older than his youngest daughter, and she spoke to him with a combination of technical precision and human kindness that he found, in that moment, extraordinarily moving. She was so young, this doctor. She had learned all these words for this category of event: hemorrhage, hemorrhagic stroke, Glasgow coma scale, vasospasm. And now she was using them to describe his wife. And she did it with complete professionalism, and with something else, too. Something that was not exactly sympathy, but was in the same territory. A recognition of what he was experiencing that did not try to diminish it or contain it in easier language. She has a very strong constitution, the doctor said, which was not quite a promise, but was something. She's the strongest person I know, he said. She's always been the strongest person I know. She survived. She woke after 3 days, opened her eyes, looked at him, and said his name. And in that moment, the large animal inside him went still at last. And he put his head down on the side of the hospital bed and allowed himself, for the first time in 3 days, to cry. But the woman who looked at him from the hospital bed was not entirely the woman he had known for 60 years. The hemorrhage had done what hemorrhages do. It had rearranged things, moved furniture in rooms, left some things intact and others cracked or missing. She remembered him. She remembered their children, their house, the basic geography of her life. But she forgot things, forgot them in the middle of sentences, forgot what she had just said, forgot what year it was, and where she was going, and why she had walked into a room. She repeated stories. She woke at 3 in the morning, crying that her money had been stolen. She sometimes looked at him with a brief, frightening blankness, not failing to recognize him exactly, but more like needing a moment to retrieve the file. And then the recognition came back, and with it an expression he could not bear, which was shame. She knew, in her lucid moments, that things were not as they had been. She knew that the reliability of her own mind had been compromised, and she minded this with a ferocity that was, in its way, proof that she was still herself. Still the woman who had a strong opinion about how things ought to be done. Still the woman who did not suffer inadequacy easily, even her own. "I forgot what I was saying," she told him one afternoon, with a directness that cost her something. "It doesn't matter," he said. "It matters to me," she said, and looked away. He learned then that the correct response was not reassurance. Reassurance was for him, for his own need to comfort, to smooth over, to make it less terrible. What she needed was not less terrible, but simply company in the terrible. Someone to sit beside her in it, without rushing to explain it away. "Then it matters," he said. "I understand." She looked at him for a long moment, then, "Good." And somehow that one word, good, just that, no embellishment, contained everything. It contained 60 years of a woman who had always been able to rely on herself, and the enormous cost of learning, late, to rely on someone else. And it contained his answer to the cost. "I am here. I will be here. This is not a burden. This is the other side of what we built together, the part we did not see coming, and we will build this part too."
Chapter 5. The Education of an Old Man. He had to learn everything. This is the sentence that seems simplest and is most enormous. He had to learn everything. At 81 years old, a retired official who had spent 60 years being efficiently managed, he had to learn how to cook rice, how to do laundry, how to navigate the district hospital, how to manage the calendar of her medications, how to wash her hair without getting shampoo in her eyes, how to coax her to eat when she had decided she was not hungry, how to tell the difference between a bad day and a day that required the doctor. He started with rice. This seemed the most foundational thing. Everything else, the vegetables, the fish, the soups, All of it could be more or less improvised, but rice was the basis, the foundation on which a Vietnamese meal is built. And if he could not cook rice, he could not feed her. She had cooked rice for 60 years. He had eaten it for 60 years. The relationship between these two facts had, until recently, seemed perfectly sufficient. He called his eldest daughter and asked her to explain. "You wash it first, Bo," she said, with a patience he recognized as the specific patience children develop for parents who have entered the phase of life where they must be guided through things their children have always known. He did not mind. He was grateful for the patience. 2 or 3 times, until the water runs clear. Until the water runs clear, he repeated, and wrote it down in the small notebook he had bought for this purpose. He was taking notes on cooking. He, who had written government policy documents that affected the lives of thousands of people, was now taking notes on how to wash rice. He found this neither humiliating nor amusing. He found it urgent. Then the water level. You put your finger in to the first knuckle above the rice. You know the finger thing? I have heard of the finger thing, he said, but I have never performed the finger thing. His daughter laughed, the same laugh as her mother's, catching her off guard. Okay, Bo, put your finger in to the first knuckle, then medium heat until it boils, then low heat, then leave it for 15 minutes. He wrote, medium heat, boils, low heat, 15 minutes. Don't lift the lid, she added. He wrote, do not lift lid. He underlined it twice. The first rice was too dry. The second batch was too wet. The third was, he thought, possibly acceptable, and he brought a bowl to where she sat in the chair by the window and watched her eat it with the focused attention of someone waiting for a performance review. It's all right, she said, which was, from her, a significant compliment. I didn't lift the lid, he said. She looked at him. You're not supposed to lift the lid. I know, I didn't. Why are you telling me about the lid? I just want you to know that I was disciplined about the lid. She ate another spoonful. The rice is fine, Tak. He considered this the best review he had received since a commendation from the district committee in 1983. He moved on to soup. Soup was more complicated than rice because it involved variables, the broth, the vegetables, the thyme. He called his son Min and asked about pork broth. He called his daughter Lan and asked about the correct preparation of morning glory. He called the youngest, Phuc, and asked whether ginger went in at the beginning or the end. Phuc said the beginning, Lan said the end. He split the difference and put it in the middle, and the resulting soup was not quite right, but was not entirely wrong either. He learned to do the laundry. The machine was not complicated, but the settings required attention. Too hot and her clothes shrank, too cold and they did not clean properly. And she had specific preferences about how her things were folded that she could no longer clearly articulate, but could immediately detect were wrong if he violated them. He began hanging her clothes on the line in the order she used to, by type and then by color, which she never commented on, and which he therefore could not verify she noticed, but which mattered to him anyway. He learned to manage her medications. There were 6 of them, each with its own schedule, its own relationship to food. This one with meals, this one an hour before, this one absolutely not with grapefruit. And he organized them in a plastic container with 7 compartments, one for each day, and checked each morning that she had taken them and each evening that she had not accidentally taken them twice. He kept a separate calendar in which he recorded any changes in her condition, her mood, her appetite, the quality of her sleep, because he had found that these records were useful to the doctors who saw her quarterly and who depended on observation over time for information they could not provide themselves. He was methodical about all of it. This was the thing that perhaps surprised him most about himself, that he could be this organized, this attentive, in a domain that had never been his. He had always been methodical at work. It was why he had been a useful official, whatever else he had or had not been. But he had not transferred that methodology to the domestic world because the domestic world had not required it, had not presented itself as a domain-requiring method, because Hua had made it all look effortless. He thought often during these months about the invisibility of her labor. Not with guilt, exactly. Guilt was not productive, and she had never asked for guilt, but with something more like wonder. She had built and maintained an entire world. She had done it for 60 years without fanfare or complaint. She had done it while also doing everything else, raising the children, keeping the social fabric intact, being the person their neighbors came to for advice, being the person Tach came home to at the end of every difficult day, being herself. She had done all of it, and he had lived inside it the way you live inside a house, grateful for the shelter, unaware of the architecture. He was aware of the architecture now. Some days were harder than others. There were days when her confusion was worse, when she moved from room to room looking for something she could not name, when she called him by the wrong name or asked him questions that had no answers. Where did I put the purple dress? When she had not owned a purple dress in 40 years. Is your mother coming for dinner? When his mother had been dead since 1991. On these days, he learned the particular skill of gentle redirection, not correction, which created distress without resolution, but soft steering toward what was present, what was real, what was available. The purple dress is being cleaned, he would say, which was not true but was not unkind. My mother is coming tomorrow, he would say, which was also not true, but the word tomorrow had a quality of deferral that gave her somewhere to put the expectation. He was not always successful. Sometimes she knew she was being managed, could feel the shape of his redirection, and this made her furious. A quick, hot fury that burned out fast and left behind a residue of something that might have been embarrassment or might have been grief. He had learned not to apologize in those moments, and not to excuse himself, but simply to wait. The waiting was its own skill. He had not been a patient man, particularly. He had been competent and purposeful, and good at managing his time, which is a different thing from being patient. But he learned. He learned to sit with her in the silence after a storm, to be present without demanding anything of the present, to find in the simple fact of her breathing, beside him, in this room, in this house, on this mountain, something that was enough. He thought sometimes that this was what she had always been doing, being present, being enough, asking of the moment nothing more than what it contained. He was a slow student, but he was learning. Chapter 6. The afternoon she was lost. It happened on a Tuesday in March, in the 3rd year after the hemorrhage. He had been distracted. This was the part he could not stop returning to. The fact of his own distraction, the ordinary, irresponsible, entirely human distraction that had created a window in his attention through which she had walked. His former colleague from the district office, Ong Tam, had called in the morning with a problem, a boundary dispute between two families that was threatening to become serious, involving contested documentation from the 1970s that Tuck, having been the responsible official at the time, might be able to clarify. It was the kind of problem he had spent his professional life navigating, and it engaged him with an automatic urgency that temporarily overrode everything else. He was on the phone for nearly an hour in the study, going through boxes of old documents he still kept in organized files in the bottom of the cabinet. He was aware, in a peripheral way, that the house was quiet, and he attributed this to her napping, as she often did in the late morning. When he came out of the study, the house was empty. He did not immediately understand what he was seeing, or rather, he understood the visual information, which was, the kitchen is empty, the living room is empty, her chair by the window is empty, the bedroom is empty. But the interpretation of this information, she is not in the house, arrived with a delay, the way a physical blow sometimes does not hurt immediately. He checked the bathroom. He checked the back porch. He checked the garden, calling her name.
Nothing. He went to the front gate. It was not locked. He locked it only at night, and she could open it easily, had been opening it for 60 years. The road outside was quiet in the midday heat. 2 motorbikes parked in front of the neighbor's house. A dog sleeping in the shade of the mandarin tree on the corner. No sign of her. He walked in both directions for 100 meters, calling her name, and then turned back and went inside for his phone. Because what he needed now was more people. He called Min. He called the neighbors. He called the village cooperative chairman, who activated a search in the particular way that small communities activate. Not formally, not with procedures, but organically. Neighbor calling neighbor. Word spreading outward in concentric circles from his gate. He himself walked. He could not stay still. He walked the routes he knew she knew. The path to the market. The path to her sister's old house. The path to the communal house where she had been going since childhood for festivals and meetings. He was walking and calling her name, and doing, behind his eyes, a precise accounting of all the ways this could go wrong, which he did not allow himself to complete because the accounting, if completed, went to places he could not afford to go while he still needed to walk and call and look. It was midday. The sun was direct and hard, the kind of March sun that surprises you with its conviction before the rains have softened it. She had not taken a hat. She had gone out in the clothes she slept in. Thin cotton pajamas, light blue, inappropriate for the sun, inappropriate for the eyes of the village, which wouldn't matter to her at all, but which mattered to him on her behalf. He imagined her walking. He tried to do it the way she would, not with a specific destination in mind, because she would not have had a specific destination, but moving as confused people move, following something internal that feels like a direction, but keeps shifting, turning corners in response to some logic that is not the logic of roads. He was right, as it turned out. This was where he found her. Not on the direct routes, but at the end of a sequence of turns that traced a private logic, winding through the older part of the village where she had grown up, past houses she had known as a child, the architecture of a different era in this place, stilt houses and earthen walls beside newer concrete, a palimpsest of 50 years of development. He did not find her. She was brought to him. A neighbor's daughter, a woman of about 40, Tuck knew her vaguely. She sold vegetables at the Tuesday market, arrived at the gate around noon with his wife beside her, holding her by the elbow with the careful attentiveness of someone managing something fragile. She explained she had found her in the alley behind the old market area, standing in the full sun, turning slowly on the spot, as though consulting a compass that was not giving clear readings.
She said she was looking for the way home, the woman said. I asked her what her house looked like, and she said she didn't know. She couldn't remember. But then she said, the woman paused, and something crossed her face, a kind of wondering tenderness. She said she remembered there was a trellis of purple flowers in front. So I brought her to the only house I know with a purple flower trellis. He thanked her. He thanked her more than once, more than the situation in its resolution technically required. But the situation had not been resolved when he was in it, and the thanks was for those 2 hours of walking with his heart in his throat, and for the specific gift of the detail, the trellis of purple flowers. That she had remembered that. Of everything her mind might have held on to, their names, their faces, the address, the road, she had held on to that. The trellis of purple flowers. He brought her inside. He sat her down and brought her water and crouched in front of her chair and held her hands in both of his, not saying anything, just holding. I got lost, she said. I know. I couldn't find it. You remembered the flowers, he said. She looked at him. The purple ones. The purple ones, he agreed.
She drank her water. She was tired and a little sun-dazed, and her feet, he saw when he took off her shoes, were dusty. He brought warm water and washed her feet, kneeling on the floor of the living room, and she submitted to this without comment. That evening he went to the garden and looked at the trellis. It had been there for 40 years. He had built it for the wisteria she had planted from a cutting, the descendant of the flowers that had given the village its name, brought from her father's house on the day they moved in and established here with the certainty of something that belongs. It was more overgrown now than it had been in its early years, thicker. The vines wound over and through the lattice in a wild accumulation of 6 decades of growth. In spring it was extravagant, a cascade of purple that could be seen from the road, that brought children to stop and look. She had remembered this. Of all the things her mind might have retained about the shape of home, it had retained this, the purple. He found a lock for the gate the next day. It was a simple combination lock, the code a number she would not easily accidentally guess, but which was meaningful to her on good days. The year of their wedding, 1965. He also found a small tag, the kind used for luggage, and threaded it onto her wrist like a bracelet, engraved with the address and his phone number, which the jeweler in the district town made up for him in one afternoon. She wore it without question, turning it once to look at the numbers engraved on it. "In case you get lost again," he said. "I won't get lost again," she said, with the composure of someone who has fully recovered her dignity. "Of course not," he said, "but just in case." She looked at the bracelet. "It's quite pretty," she said, which was not true. It was a utilitarian object with no pretense to beauty, but which he accepted as the closest she was going to come to thank you, and which was, therefore, enough. The lock, the bracelet, the note he now left on the kitchen table each morning. "I am in the garden. I am in the study. I am at the market. Back by X." He built around the perimeter of their life a structure of small precautions that together constituted his best available answer to the fact that the world contained dangers he could not entirely control. He could not restore her mind. He could not prevent her from getting lost again. But he could make the trellis of purple flowers, the thing she had remembered, visible from further away. He called the nursery and ordered 12 more cuttings, and spent a weekend planting them along the fence line, the full length of the gate. By the following spring, they bloomed, purple, extravagant, visible from the road. A landmark, a memory prompt, a note to herself from himself. Here is home. Here is where you belong. Here is where you are known.
Chapter 7. The Arithmetic of Days. He had begun, without consciously deciding to, keeping a kind of accounting. Not written. He had tried writing it, the daily record, and found that the act of writing made him look at things through a lens of documentation that changed them, flattened them. So he kept the accounting in his head instead. A daily summation, the quality of the day, what had been good, what had been difficult, what she had said or done that was either one. Today she had recognized the neighbor's grandchild by name. That was good. Yesterday she had cried for 40 minutes because she could not find her mother, who had been dead for 50 years. That was difficult. He had not tried to explain. He had sat beside her and held her hand and let her cry. And eventually she had tired of it and gone to sleep, and when she woke she was calm and did not remember it. The forgetting of the bad moments was, he had decided, a mercy. He tried to think of it this way. The mind, injured as it was, had arranged itself to protect her from accumulating new griefs. Whatever she cried over in the afternoon was gone by morning. He was the one who remembered. He carried the accounting for both of them now. All the difficult things,
while she moved through each day with the relative lightness of the perpetual present. Was that a mercy? He was not always sure. It seemed like a mercy for her. For him, carrying the full weight of memory, his own and hers. It was heavier than one man ought to carry. But he had not been given a choice about this. And in his experience, arguing with the things you have not been given a choice about is the most wasteful possible use of the energy you need for other things. So he carried it, and he accounted. The accounting had a purpose beyond record-keeping. It was a way of answering daily a question he had begun to ask himself without quite realizing. Is this still a life worth living? Not in any dramatic existential sense. He was not a person prone to drama or existentialism. But in the practical sense of, is there enough good to balance the weight of the difficult? Is there still a reason to get up at 5 and change the sheets and make the rice and find the lost money and wait patiently for her to come back from wherever she has been? The answer was always yes. He was surprised sometimes by how clearly and how quickly the yes arrived. Because there were good things. They were not always the good things he might have chosen if he had been designing a life at this stage. Not dinners with the children, not walks in the mountain evening, not conversations about books or politics or the changes in the village over 60 years. The good things were smaller and stranger and more intimate than he would have predicted. She said funny things. She did not know they were funny, which made them funnier. Once, examining a photograph of herself from the 1970s, her children young around her, her face still firm and smooth. She had looked at it for a long time and then said, "Who is that woman? She looks like hard work." He had laughed so suddenly and so thoroughly that he had to sit down, and she had looked at him with mild offense, unable to understand what was funny. She said true things. Sometimes the veil between her and her own memory lifted unexpectedly, and what came through was more direct, more essential than anything she might have said in full possession of her faculties. Once she had taken his hand, in the middle of an afternoon that had seemed ordinary in every way, and held it for a moment and said, "You are a good person, Tik. Not everyone would do this." And then she had let go of his hand and gone back to looking out the window, as though she had delivered a message she had been carrying for a while and was glad to have delivered it.
He had not spoken, because he could not. He looked at the mountains and breathed. She was affectionate in ways she had not always been, or rather, she was affectionate differently. She had always been a reserved woman physically. She was not one for displays of sentiment, but the illness had loosened something in this regard. She reached for his hand more readily. She leaned against his arm when they sat side by side in the evening. Once, she had put her palm on his cheek for no reason and left it there for a moment, looking at him, and he had held very still so as not to end it. These were the things he counted. He also thought, in the quiet accounting hours, usually early morning when she was still asleep and the mountain was just beginning to consider the day, about time. Not the future, which was uncertain in ways he preferred not to specify, but time in general. The relationship between time and love. Whether love, compacted under sufficient time and pressure, transforms into something qualitatively different, not deeper exactly, since depth implies a direction, but more present, perhaps, more entire. He thought about what she had said years ago. More rooms. He thought the metaphor was more exact than she had perhaps known when she made it. In the years since her illness, they had found rooms they had not previously known were there, rooms that could only be entered from this side of catastrophe, rooms whose doors had been behind other doors. The room in which he learned to wash her hair without getting shampoo in her eyes. The room in which he learned to hear what she meant rather than what she said. The room in which she reached for his hand without needing to explain why. He was living, he had concluded, in the largest house they had ever occupied. It was also the house with the thinnest walls. Outside its windows, the cold pressed in. The rooms would not be there forever, but they were there now, and he was in them, and so was she, and the accounting always came out the same. Enough. More than enough. More than he had known to ask for.
Chapter 8. What the children saw. They came for Tet, all four of them, with their spouses and the grandchildren, filling the house with a density of living that it had not contained since the children had been children. The house, which accommodated 2 old people with the ease of long habit, could just barely accommodate 12 people with their noise and their conflicting schedules and their opinions about where things should be. Min, the eldest, arrived first with his wife Tui and their 2 teenage grandsons, who communicated primarily through their phones and regarded the mountain house with the politely disguised incomprehension of urban young people confronting rural life. Min was 60 now. This was still astonishing to Tuck, that his son was 60, that he himself had a son 60 years old, and had his mother's eyes and his father's jaw, and a quality of quiet authority that came from having been a secondary school principal for 22 years. He was not a demonstrative man. He showed his affection through action, arriving early, helping with things before being asked, carrying things without comment. What he could not do, Tuck saw, was watch his mother without pain. He watched her with the careful control of someone managing a grief that is ongoing, that has no resolution, that must be lived with rather than through. When she recognized him and said his name, "Min, you've gotten old," she told him with complete seriousness. He smiled and said yes. And the smile stayed in place, but his eyes went somewhere else for a moment, somewhere behind the smile. Lan, the eldest daughter, was different. She was a nurse, had been a nurse for 30 years, in the district hospital where her mother had been treated, and she brought to her mother's condition the particular combination of clinical knowledge and personal grief that is perhaps the most difficult emotional position. You understand exactly what is happening, and you wish you didn't. She checked her mother's medications on the first evening, went through Tuck's calendar with professional attention, asked questions he had not thought to ask. "You're doing very well, Bo," she said, at the end of this review. "I'm doing what's needed," he said. "That's what doing very well means," she said. "A lot of people don't." He thought about this. Who would not? She was quiet for a moment. People who find it too hard. People who decide the institutional option is better. There are good facilities now, Bo. The one in the provincial capital is quite good, I've seen it. "No," he said. Simply, clearly, without elaboration. She nodded. She had expected this. "Okay," she said. "Then you need to tell me what you need from us. Don't say nothing." He thought about it genuinely. It was a real question. She was a practical person, and he was trying to be honest. "Someone to talk to," he said finally. "Who knows her? Who knows both of us? Someone I can call." "You can always call me," Lan said. "I know," he said. "But I don't. Because I don't want to worry you." She looked at him for a long moment with an expression he recognized. It was the expression her mother used to make when he said something that was simultaneously understandable and completely wrong. "Call me," she said. "That's what worry is for." The youngest two, his son Phúc and his daughter Huong, were, in their different ways, the most affected. Phúc, who was 54 and had always been closest to his mother, could barely be in the room with her without his face doing something he was trying to prevent it from doing. He brought her things: fruit, the specific brand of crackers she had always liked, a new pair of soft socks, with the desperate generosity of someone who wants to fix something and knows they cannot fix it, and keeps bringing offerings anyway. She received his offerings with pleasure, often forgetting by the next day where they had come from. Once she held up the crackers and asked Tick, "Who left these?" "Someone left these. Are they safe to eat?" "Fook brought them," he told her. "Fook is here?" "He's in the garden." She looked at the crackers for a moment. "He always brought me things when he was small," she said. "Little things. A stone, a flower. Once a very large beetle. He said it was a present." She paused. "I don't know what I was supposed to do with a beetle." He called Fook in from the garden. Fook sat with her for an hour, the two of them talking about things that had happened 30 years ago. And she was there, fully there for most of that hour, her mind moving through those old rooms without confusion, her voice precise and warm. He could hear them from the kitchen where he was making tea, her laugh, real, catching her off guard. He stood in the kitchen and listened. Hung, the youngest daughter, was 22 years his junior, and had her mother's specific combination of beauty and competence, and a directness that came, he thought, from having watched both parents operate with directness for her entire life. She was the one who asked the question that no one else asked. She came to him on the second evening, when the others were occupied and the house was as quiet as it ever got with 12 people in it. She sat across from him at the kitchen table and said without preamble, "Are you happy, Bo?" He looked at her. He considered the question seriously, as she had asked it seriously. "That's a complicated question," he said. "I know. I'm asking it anyway." He thought about the early mornings, the rice, the bracelet with the address on it, the moment her hand on his cheek, the trellis of purple flowers, the accounting he kept each day, the daily yes. "Yes," he said. "Not in the way I was happy when you were all small, or when your mother and I were young. A different kind. Quieter." He paused. "More real, maybe." Hung looked at him for a moment. Her eyes were her mother's eyes. "She told me something today," she said. "I don't know if she'll remember she said it." "What did she say?" "She said she doesn't always know where she is or what year it is, but she always knows when you're in the room." Hung's voice was steady, but it was working at being steady. "She said that's the thing she still knows without having to think about it. You." He was quiet for a long time. "She didn't say it like a sad thing," Hung added. "She said it like a fact, like it was reliable information." He nodded slowly. He looked at his hands on the table, his old man's hands, dry-skinned and spotted, with the 3 fingers that had never healed quite right. He had known these hands for 84 years, and they were still sometimes surprising to him. "Good," he said. Just that. Good. The way she had said it in the hospital. He took Hung's hand across the table, her hand young and smooth and warm. He held it for a moment, and then let go and got up to see if the water had boiled.
Chapter 9. The Foolish Thought. He sat with his foolish thoughts on the back porch in the evenings, when she was asleep in the chair by the window, and the mountains were doing what they did at this hour, putting on their colors, purple and amber, and a deep blue that was not quite night, performing the daily drama of the end of light with the grandeur of things that have been doing this for longer than anyone has been watching. He had called them foolish thoughts himself. The word was his. He had said it once to Lon, that he sometimes thought foolish things. But they were not foolish, of course. They were the most serious thoughts he had. They were the thoughts that arrived when everything was quiet enough for them to be heard. The foolish thought, as he had framed it to himself over the years, was this: what if one of them left first? It was not, of course, an if. It was a when. The when was the point of the thought. There would be a first. There would be a last.
One of them would be left in this house, or would cease to be in this house, would be the one who went and who was therefore no longer in any house, while the other remained in the particular state of remaining. He had two versions of the thought, because there were two possibilities, and they were asymmetrical in a way he found interesting and terrible. If he went first, this was the one that caused him the most immediate distress, and it was also the one he could do the least about. He would not, after all, be present to manage it. But she would. She would wake in a house without him, in a bed he was no longer in, and she would not, this was the specific grinding terror, she would not, in her current state, fully understand where he had gone. She would look for him. She would ask about him. She would perhaps go to the gate and open the combination lock with the code she sometimes forgot and sometimes remembered. And she would walk out into the village looking for him, and someone would have to explain again and again, each time she forgot, that he was not there, he was not coming back, he had gone. Who would do that explaining? Not to her. He could not protect her from the explaining. But who would be there to do it with the right gentleness, the right patience? Who would know the bracelet number, the medication schedule, which neighbor to call, which version of the calendar he had been keeping, what she meant when she said she needed the purple one, how long you had to wait after a storm? He had talked to Lan about this. He had talked to all of them, in various configurations, about the practical matter of what would happen. They had made plans, careful, loving, well-intentioned plans that he believed they would execute with devotion. He believed this, but he also knew, in the deep, private knowledge of someone who has been doing this for 3 years, that the plans could not account for everything, that you could not plan for what you did not yet know. He had done what he could. The documents were organized. The calendar was annotated. He had written out, in a notebook separate from the records, a document that he thought of as his letter to whoever came after, a description, in as much detail as he could manage, of her routines, her preferences, her fears, the things that helped and the things that didn't, the phrases that reached her when she was furthest away, the particular combination of patience and humor that he had learned over 3 years was most effective in the difficult moments. He had written it as clearly as he could write anything, and he had given copies to all 4 children, and he tried not to think about whether it was sufficient. It was not sufficient. Nothing was sufficient. But it was what there was. If she went first. This version of the thought was simpler and, in its simplicity, larger. She would be gone. He would be in this house without her. He had been in this house for 63 years, and she had been in it for every day of those 63 years. And the structure of the house, the structure of his life, the structure of his self was built around and through and with hers. And the thought of the house without her was, he could not complete the thought. It was a room he could approach, but not enter.
He sat with this on the back porch. He let the mountains do their evening thing. He drank his tea, which had gone cold. He thought about the shape of the house without her, and could not think it through to the end, because the end was not imaginable. Not because it was too terrible. Terrible things are imaginable. That is what makes them terrible. But because there was nothing in his experience to map it to. She had always been here. The house was the shape that her presence gave to space. And then, as always, he heard something. Her cough, or her voice calling him, or just the sound of movement inside, her adjusting in the chair, the creak of the wooden floor. And the thought, which had been enormous and cold, shrank back to a size that fit inside an old man's chest, and he got up from the porch step and went inside. She was awake. She was sitting forward in the chair with the expression of someone who has just remembered something important. She was looking around the room. "Boo-hoo," she said, and the sound was so unexpected, so precisely the sound of a child crying, performed with total sincerity, that he stopped in the doorway. "Where's my money? Someone stole it!" He went to the pile of clothes on the chair, the pants she had changed out of this morning, or perhaps the night before. The timeline was less important than the fact. He found, in the pocket, the small roll of money she kept there. A few thousand dong in small bills, held together with a rubber band, which she had been carrying in her pockets for as long as he could remember. A habit from the years of market going, always having something in your pocket, always being prepared. He brought it to her. He held it out in his palm. "Here's your money," he said gently, in the voice he used when she was in one of these moments. Not patronizing, not childish, simply quieter than usual, smaller, as though turning down the volume of the world so it would not be too much. "Nobody stole it. Here it is. Why are you crying?" She looked at the money in his palm. She reached out and took it, and the gesture of that taking was entirely herself, precise and deliberate. The take of a woman who knows the value of things and does not relinquish what is hers without good reason. She held the roll in both hands. She opened it and began to count. He sat down beside her and watched her count. Her lips moved. Her fingers worked through the small bills with practiced sureness. Outside, the mountain dark had completed itself, the last color gone, the stars beginning their appearance above the ridgeline. The lamp made its amber circle on the table. Her snoring would start again soon, when she fell back into sleep. He watched her count her money and he thought, "This is what there is. This room, this lamp, this woman with her thin hands counting the bills she has carried in her pocket for 40 years. This is the room we are in now, and it is smaller than some of the rooms we have been in, and larger than I understood. And I am not going anywhere." "It's all here," she said, having finished the count. She looked up at him. "I told you," he said. "You can never be too careful," she said, and put the money in the pocket of his shorts that she was wearing. He did not say anything about the shorts.
Chapter 10.
The Purple Flowers in Spring. Spring came again. It came the way it always came on this mountain, which was not gradually but suddenly. One week cold and brown, the next week green, as though the mountain had made a decision and committed to it without the prolonged deliberation of the lowland seasons. The wisteria was always the first announcement. A warmth arrived in the wood of the trellis, something changed in the light, and then there were buds, and then, within days, flowers. He woke on the morning of the first full bloom to find her already awake, already at the window. She was standing. She stood up more easily in the mornings, before the day's fatigue accumulated, with her hands on the windowsill and her face turned toward the gate, and the expression on her face was one he did not see often. Pure attention, undiluted by confusion or effort or the particular work of trying to locate herself in time. She was simply looking, and the purple flowers were there to be looked at. "They're out," she said, when she heard him come to stand beside her. "First day," he said. "I checked yesterday and nothing." "I knew this morning," she said. "I woke up and I knew." He looked at her profile. The wrinkles, the age spots, the sunken eyes, the thin neck. The face of 83 years of living that he had memorized over 6 decades, until he could draw it from memory in the dark. He thought, "I have been looking at this face for 63 years, and it is still the most interesting face I know." He said, "Let's have breakfast outside today." She turned to look at him, a small surprise, then something settling in her expression, a pleasure at the idea, a willingness. "It's not too cold?" "Not today. Today is warm." He made breakfast,
Not rice, which was the usual, but something different. The sticky rice cake she had always liked, which he had learned to make last year, following her eldest sister's handwritten recipe with the focused attention he had once given to government policy papers. He made strong tea. He arranged everything on the tray and carried it outside to the small table he had moved to the garden, under the trellis, where the purple cascade hung above them and the morning air was sweet with it. She came out slowly, one hand on his arm. She sat in the chair he had placed for her with the ease of someone arriving at the right place. She looked up at the flowers. "My father used to say," she said, "that the flowers know when winter is finished. Not the calendar, the flowers." He was right, Tak said. He had not disagreed with her father in 40 years. They ate. She ate well. She sometimes had no appetite, but today was a good day, and she ate the sticky rice with the concentrated pleasure of someone tasting something that connects to a long chain of memory. He watched her eat. The morning light came through the purple flowers and moved on the table. She said, "I remember the first spring we were here, after the wedding." He stilled. He was careful not to make a sound, not to shift the air in a way that might close the window. She was in the past, in the real past, clear-eyed and present. "The flowers were so much," she said. "I had forgotten how many there were. I grew up here and I forgot to notice." She paused. "You kept looking at them. You kept saying you had never seen anything like it." "I hadn't," he said. "There's nothing like this in the Delta." "You kept saying that," she said, and there was a warmth in her voice, an affectionate amusement. "Everything was different from the Delta. The air was different from the Delta. The food was different from the Delta. I thought you would go home within a year." "Did you want me to?" She considered this with the seriousness she gave to real questions. "No," she said, "but I thought you would." "I never wanted to go home," he said. This was home. She looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were clear. She was fully here, in this moment, in this spring, with the purple flowers above them and the mountains beyond, and 63 years of mornings between them. "I know," she said. "I always knew." He did not say anything. There were things that did not improve with saying. After a while, she reached out and picked a single flower that had fallen onto the table, a small purple bloom, still perfect. She turned it in her fingers. "Pretty," she said. She looked at him. "Do you know what I want?" "What?" "I want you to tell me a story. Something old." She settled back in her chair, the flower in her hand, her eyes going soft with the preparation for listening. "Tell me something I might have forgotten."
He thought for a moment. Then he told her about the banyan trees. He told her about the 5 o'clock mornings and the dogs and the stick waving and the neighbor children who gathered to watch. He told her about the time the biggest dog actually caught his trouser leg and he had stood perfectly still for 10 minutes while it growled at him, and her father had come to the door and looked at him and gone back inside without saying anything, which he had taken as a sign of progress. He told her about the morning her father said, "If my daughter is willing." He told her what she had looked like walking toward him in the spring light, in her embroidered clothes with the silver at her throat. She listened with her eyes half closed. Once she smiled, the real smile, the one that caught her off guard. "I was so nervous," she said, without opening her eyes. "You didn't look nervous," he said. "I was very nervous. I thought I might fall over." A pause. "I almost did. At the third step, I almost fell over. But I didn't. "I didn't know that," he said.
"There are things you don't know."
She opened her eyes and looked at him directly, the way she had always looked at him, with the full force of who she was, all of it present, no portion of it withdrawn.
"Even after all this time. Isn't that interesting?"
"Yes," he said. "It is." Above them, the purple flowers moved in the morning air. The mountain was doing what it always did, going about its enormous, unhurried business, not noticing them, not needing to notice them, providing without intention the landscape against which their 63 years had been lived. He poured more tea. She turned the small purple flower in her fingers. Neither of them spoke for a while, and the silence was the kind that has weight to it, not the weight of emptiness, but the weight of fullness, the weight of a room that is full of everything that has ever happened in it, all of it present, all of it held. Later, much later, after she had gone to nap and he had washed the breakfast things and stood at the kitchen window looking out at the empty table under the trellis, he allowed himself to think, briefly, the complete version of the foolish thought. One of them would leave first. This was not if, but when. And whoever was left would be left with this: a house full of rooms, a trellis of purple flowers, a small notebook with instructions. 63 years of mornings, held in memory the way the mountain holds its snow, slowly, and then not. And before that, before the when, there was still the now. The now in which she was asleep in the chair with her flowers in her hand, and the purple was brilliant outside the window, and the tea was cooling on the tray, and she had told him this morning that there were still things he did not know about her, even after all this time. He thought, "I would like a little more time to find out." He thought, "I will keep asking." He went to the garden and sat under the trellis in the morning light, and the purple flowers were around him on all sides, and he sat there for a long time in the particular luxury of a man who is old enough to know that ordinary mornings are the treasure, and who has, this morning, an ordinary morning to sit in. He sat. He breathed. The mountain held its vast and patient peace. And in the room behind the purple flowers, she slept, and her breath moved the air of the house, and the house held the sound of it the way a bell holds a note after it has been struck. Not forever, but for longer than you might expect. For longer than you might expect. Epilogue. What remains? There is a house on a mountain in a village called Ban Hua Tim. It is an ordinary house, concrete walls painted pale yellow, a tin roof, a wooden porch, a small garden that someone tends with quiet diligence. From the road, you would not necessarily stop to look at it. You might pass it on your way to somewhere else, noting without thinking, a house, an old gate, someone's home. But if you passed in the spring, you would stop. You would stop because of the flowers. They cover the fence and the gate and the trellis beside the door in a cascade that is, on the right morning, excessive in the way only living things can be excessive. A purple so concentrated and abundant, it seems to push against the boundaries of what a garden is supposed to do, to overflow itself, to insist on being seen. If you stopped, and if you looked through the gate, you might see an old man in the garden. He moves carefully, the way people move when their bodies require some attention to navigate, but he moves with purpose. There are things to do, and he knows what they are. He tends the flowers as though they are important, because they are. If it is a morning when his wife is alert and well, you might see her too, sitting in a chair that has been carried outside into the garden, so that she can be in the air, in the light, near him. She does not always know what year it is. She does not always know which decade. But she knows he is there, and she knows the purple flowers are there. And she holds these two things with the tenacity of someone who understands, at some deep level below language,
that they are the important things. They have been married for 63 years. If you asked them, if you could sit with them in the garden in the spring light and ask them what they knew about love after 63 years, they would probably not answer in the way you expect. He would tell you something practical. She would say something unexpected that turned out, the more you thought about it, to be exact. But the answer, if you watched rather than asked, is here, in the careful way he moves her chair into the sun, in the way she reaches for his hand without looking, in the small purple flower she holds, turning it in her fingers, the way you turn something you want to keep. This is what love looks like after 63 years and a brain hemorrhage and the theft of your shorts in the middle of the night. It looks like this: ordinary, present, full of rooms. The flowers bloom every spring. They are blooming now.
Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, like, comments, and share. See you again!